able to see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So what you're looking at supervisor core, and you'll notice at the bottom now, there are 4 attendance activities, right? These activities represent 2 check-in points for each training day, right? So there's a morning check-in, afternoon check-in. And the way these works are they're activities that are set up in the courses that are set and designed for student input that then trigger completion or trigger a grade that the combined total of all of them will then trigger completion. Okay. So how this worked before is we were asking training assistants to go to the attendance module. So they would come in here and click mark attendance. And, because it was dynamic, there was no way for us to pre-configure all the aspects of the attendance assignment or item that was being calculated. So I'll show you a little bit further. You go into the grade books. What was happening here is we would set up calculations. We would set up our completed and our total calculations. These are the ones that report via API back to Genius. And we would set them up so that they would pull attendance information and then transfer that status to Genius, right? Which would then do a couple things, right? In Genius, it would release post evaluations and it would provide that completed status. Well, what we found was on multi-day trainings, day 1, you would go and mark present, and then that completion status would immediately trigger and be sent over to Genius. So then day 2, you're going, well, now what do we do, right? Do we mark attendance today or do we not mark attendance on day 1 and only mark it on day 2? And that's not satisfactory. So in this form, I can create the assignments ahead of time. I can set how they're going to be configured to react to how they're going to impact the total and completed categories. And then, when a score is added to each of these, the final result will then send over the desired results to Genius. Okay. So we're going to take a look at this grade book in a different format. We're going to look at it in this grid format. So you can see we have, again, the total and completed. These 2 statuses are the ones that get sent via API to Genius. You would have a list of learners here. You could come in here theoretically, right, and come in and manually grade each one of these and give them a point, right, and say like, oh, each of these are valued at a point. So if you're marking attendance that way, you could look at who's in the Zoom session. You could do a roll call, or you could just look at who's there and you could add a point during each of those check-ins, right? And so you come in here and you would say grade, and you would put 1, right? Post, and go down the list. But it's designed for user input. And so the other way to do this, the more recommended way, right, is to, on the training day, at the time of attendance check-in, you would make this visible to students. You might have to ask them to refresh their screens. And then you would say, now complete your morning check-in. And they would open this item. They'll see an activity that looks like this, which is simply an acknowledgement of the training day, right? You must complete the associated evaluations for this course to receive full training credit. Please mark true if you accept the requirements. And they would say true. And then that's it for the assignment. They get a point, right? Because that's the correct answer. If they mark false, they're going to get a feedback message that simply says, you need to do this. you need to respond with true or re-enroll in this training session, right? Like you need to talk to your training coordinator. Because if you can't accept that you're going to complete all the components of this training, then you're not going to finish this training day, right? So simply marking true is what they do. They get the point, and they'll do that 4 times, right? So once all 4 are completed, I'll show you the calculations in the grade book and what the calculations look like. What I've done is divided the calculations in the grade book so that your total looks like this. So now the total is based upon all 4 of those inputs in order to then to send the results to Genius. So before it was only tracking one of these, right? The total configuration it was only tracking one total, and it was attendance. And the problem with that is if you had a multi-day training, there would be a new attendance item added each day. So even if we were saying, oh, track the category of attendance, it was not capturing properly all the different days of training attendance, right? And so then stuff was missing, or it was triggering too early. So that's why we've left that model. This model then allows us to specify more accurately what exactly needs to be tracked. And then the completion of all of those items is what determines what is going to get sent as completed and as total to Genius. Okay. So hopefully that provides a little more clarity on how that works. Julian, do you have more questions around that, or do you want to see more?
Yeah, so is this going to be the case or the method used for one-day trainings as well?
Yes, because so again, on the one-day training, we were marking present and waiting to the end of the training day to mark present. In this case, we do a double check-in, and then what it's doing is it's capturing the check-in, the total of the combined check-ins, right? The morning and afternoon.
And my other question is, once you enter a 1, let's say if a TA is taking attendance and they enter a 1, it's important for them to post those grades, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
They must do that final step of clicking post.